You got to take someone, usually an executive, but it could be anyone from the CEO to someone who works on the shop floor, and you got to make them look as good as a movie star. And that's easy when you've got a big budget for hair, makeup, fantastic cameras. It's easy when the person's really attractive as well. Sometimes it's not that easy. But your job is to make them look amazing, and that starts with getting the shot right. We use a really simple formula for corporate video that's almost become the standard in the industry. It's called the off-camera interview. The person is talking to an interviewer just next to the camera. They're framed up with their face on the outside of the frame along the 2/3 looking into the frame. They're lit so you can see the face clearly. The eyes are illuminated. That's really important because if you can't see someone's eyes, you can't trust them. And they're mic'd up with a microphone, lapel mic on the chest, facing down with a very neat, tasteful newsman's loop. That's the basics, and you've got to get them right. The next thing is to really dig in and obsess over the details. And that can be something in the background, like a mug on a desk or getting a laptop position right, but really that means focusing on how the person looks. You're in a sense the custodian of that person's vanity. You need to make sure that they look perfect. And that comes from really micromanaging everything about how they look. You don't want a pimple on their face. You don't want their hair to sit wrong. You don't want their glasses to be catching reflections. So you need to dig in and fine-tune each of those elements. A really persistent bugbear for me is actually dealing with double chins. You'll find that at a certain point in life, not everyone looks good in the neckle region. Mostly happens to men, it happens to some women as well. And then you're filming with that person, you've got to try and make them look good. And you can make up the face, but makeup doesn't do a lot below the chin. So what we'll do there is we'll really start playing with elements like lighting. Maybe you'll want to bring the light up to try and cast more shadow below the chin. If for some reason that doesn't work, then what you can try is raising the camera and shooting down a little bit so that you're catching a little bit less there. If that fails as well, you can even raise the interviewer so that the subject is looking a little bit up as well. There's a documentary filmmaker, Werner Herzog, who's the king of the interview. And he has a wonderful story that he tells. He was filming a documentary about executions in the United States. And he was filming the priest who gave the last rites to the prisoners before they were executed. And he puts them up in a cemetery, they've got the crosses behind him, and Werner's expecting this amazing interview, and the guy gives him nothing. He's just dodging the questions, blocking, look at his watch. And as the interview's winding down, Werner says he's just shooting, he's trying to get something. And he starts asking the guy what he does on his days off. And the guy says, well, I go and play golf. He says, well, what happens when you play golf? I'll drive the cart around, hit a few balls, I'll look at the squirrels. And Werner leans in. Tell me about an encounter with the squirrel. And the guy sits back and he says, I look at the squirrels, and the other day I was driving along and one ran in front of the golf cart and I had to slam the brakes on and I almost killed it. And he breaks down. And the film starts with that interview. It's one of the most emotional, raw, searing interviews. And he never would have gotten that if he hadn't asked about a squirrel. Packaging is a process of transcribing, scripting, editing, color grading, sound mastering, and even animating and designing if you're bringing those elements in. And that's where you need to be really cognizant of the fact that this is a strategic product. It's part of the communication strategy. The client definitely has one. And you need to make sure that it fits into that strategy. And every element of what you've done needs to be informed by that strategy and actually by the final place that the video is going. So for example, there's very much an archetypal structure of corporate video, and it's essentially 10, 20-second title slide, interview starts, the guy set up in the off-camera interview, name and job title pop up, they start talking, and eventually some B-roll, some cutaways come in, and you see a factory, corporate offices, whatever the company does, etc. And what you need to realize is that every one of those elements has become part of that structure based off of where that video comes from. And that structure really comes from TV news, right? The off-camera interview is how we used to see executives because they were being interviewed by a journalist. They're speaking off-camera to a journalist, and on TV we'd even see them. We'd cut to them and they're doing the nodding thing. And particularly the titles on the start, interestingly, they actually come from cinema. They're a tool that gets negotiated between the big companies that run Hollywood and the unions so that everyone gets recognized. Depending on where your video is going, maybe some of those elements don't actually make sense. So in a big cinema movie, opening title at the beginning is critical. If we're putting a video out on Facebook, a 10-second intro title is actually just a barrier to anyone watching the video. If I'm scrolling through my feed, all that title's doing is just saying, you can't watch yet. You can't watch? You can't? Now you can watch. And that's pointless because most of your audience is gone by then. I've met corporate communicators who aren't on Twitter and aren't on Facebook, but we're making content for Twitter and Facebook. So they just won't understand. And that's no fault of them, they're brilliant, but they need a little bit of help to get through that. And the way that you can help them is unfortunately the only way is by building their trust. They need to trust you. How do you build trust? Well, most of the time when a client doesn't trust someone, they're not very good at their job. I've found if you deliver on the fundamentals, get everything perfect, that's how you build trust. And that's how you then lead them to somewhere really, really great, where they're actually willing to invest in bigger, more fantastical, more extravagant projects than simple videos.